In a funny way, the Muslim vote could make a very, very big difference to Labour. I met, not an hour ago, a Conservative Member of Parliament. He's got a very small majority. Labour are challenging him. But if Galloway's party puts up a candidate, he'll probably hold his seat. So there could be all sorts of consequences. But what about the very concept of the Muslim vote, of now the organisation called the Muslim vote? Is this a good, healthy thing? I worry that it's deeply divisive. Well, I'm joined by Mohammed, Akunjee solicitor, who is standing as an independent parliamentary candidate for Bethnal Green and Stepney at the next election, and famously was a lawyer for Shamima Begum. Mohammed, you were going to stand as an independent in this seat. Are you now tempted to join George Galloway?
No, I've come on the ticket as an independent, and I think that's very important, because my constituents haven't felt that they've heard or been heard by their existing politicians, and an independent candidate has an advantage in that they can listen to the constituents and formulate a manifesto based on what they say and what we hear, rather than have a manifesto shoved down their throat.
Now, you've got, obviously, a constituency with a very high proportion of Muslims in it. What would that represent in voting terms?
About 46%.
Yeah, so it's half and half. What is it they haven't been listened to about?
Well, pretty much all their issues are, in terms of the average age or death rate for the average man in our constituency is 10 years less than the average. So if you look at that in terms of what that means for individuals there, it means the type of life sort of problems that they're suffering are bringing down their age by almost a fifth of their lifespan.
There's a similar comparison, actually, between Glasgow and Surrey.
Yep.
Again, with a 11-year difference or whatever it is.
And Kensington is the highest.
And that's about poverty. That's about
access to healthcare, access to social services.
Is there an access to healthcare problem?
There is an access to healthcare problem in that we have a very high population density in Bethnal Green, and yet in terms of waiting lists and the services that are available to people when they need them, it's particularly problematic. We have a slightly ageing population as well, and the post sort of orthopedic care is very, very difficult.
So are these, Mohammed, issues of health, deprivation, low educational attainment, low income, or do you see those as being linked to the Muslim religion?
Well, I'd say that they are not just unique to Bethnal Green, and they're not unique to Muslims in Bethnal Green. You'll find that if you look in certain constituencies in Wales or Teesside, as you mentioned as well.
Yeah.
But what we do have is a political class that's ignored certain groups of people. You yourself will know that you've tapped into an unsung millions when talking about the Brexit vote. And in this case, we have many people, and not just Muslims at all, who are protesting about key issues, one of those being the issue in Gaza, and being felt that they're not being heard. Now, Gaza isn't the straw that broke the camel's back. It's the thing that proves that the constituents are not being listened to.
And that's why Galloway, in his acceptance speech in the hall, the first sentence was, "This is for Gaza."
Well, I think it's important that the British people have always been about justice and always been about fair play. And they've spoken in the polls, in terms of Murray polls, they've spoken on the streets, and they have, to the tune of 71% of the British people generally in the country, have been against this genocide. Yet...
Hang on. I mean, genocide is a way over the top term, isn't it? It's a way over the top term. You know, we use genocide in the context of a willful, deliberate attempt to get rid of a group of people. This is not that. So, there is no way, whatever the flaws, however over the top the Israelis are, they are not attempting a genocide.
What the legal definition of a genocide is, the International Court of Justice has already ruled that the behaviour of Israel in Gaza is at the foothills of a genocide, right. And that is yet to be listened to.
Even if it's at the foothills, it is not a genocide. You see, I mean, I worry about this. I mean, you know, you tweeted on October the 7th, after those barbaric, appalling, shocking attacks, and indeed there are still hostages in Gaza still suffering today. You said the option of settler colonization just got taken off the table. What did you mean by that?
So in terms of the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian lands, that is by definition called the occupation.
So Israel shouldn't exist?
Israel should not be allowed to illegally occupy Palestinian territory.
So Israel shouldn't exist?
I don't know why you keep repeating that.
Well, I'm asking you whether that's what you really mean.
No, what I mean is quite clear, that settler occupation, the illegal occupation of Israeli land, of Palestinian territory, which is the British foreign policy position, is called illegally occupied territory, should not exist.
You see, I mean, the question I'm really asking you, Mohammed, is where do your loyalties really lie? Do your loyalties lie with this country, with the people of this country as a collective, or do they lie with a particular group? You know, for example, a Muslim group, not just in your constituency, but more broadly across the country. Where do your loyalties actually lie?
So if you look at my position, particularly even on Gaza is the most recent one, but my loyalties lie with where 71% of the British public's loyalty lie on that issue.
On a snapshot at this moment in time.
With the royal family, in terms of Prince William coming out saying that he doesn't want to see any more death there, the royal family's been very clear about that position as well.
There are lots of
thing
people.
that our political elite
are
not happy with is what the British people are saying about this issue.
There are lots of unhappy people. I get that. I understand that. They hate what they're seeing in Gaza. I get all of that. I fully understand it. I also understand that if Israel don't wipe out Hamas, they'll cross the border and do it again. So they're in a very difficult position. What I'm saying to you is, the politics that's emerging from George Galloway, what you're saying to me now, albeit in far more subtle and gentle tones, is that what happens in Gaza seems to matter more than what's happening in Bethnal Green.
What's happening in the UK is that we have austerity. We've had it for 13 years.
No, we haven't. And the national debt's got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Well, we can speak to Sunak as to why he claims that's been happening, but it's been getting bigger and bigger, partly because of the pandemic and the misuse of our funds in that pandemic. It's been getting bigger because of our commitment to foreign wars. That's not a foreign issue. Ukraine is not a foreign issue, and Israel-Gaza is not a foreign issue. The money's been taken away from our people.
These are actually relatively small sums of money compared to bigger issues. I mean, look, let's get back to the key of what George said. George Galloway said the next election will be about Muslims. Is he right?
Well, certainly if Sunak has his way, it will be.
So what was Sunak doing, in your view?
Well, Sunak was recategorising people, general people, the majority of people who have been on these protests are not Muslims. At least 80% are non-Muslims who have been on these pro-Palestinian protests.
There are plenty of white middle-class girls on these marches, etc. I understand
There's plenty of Jewish people on these marches.
I very much doubt that.
I've stood with them.
I very much doubt that.
You're welcome to come to the next one.
I think if I turned up, in Jewish kid, I'm not sure I'd be very welcome. You know as well as I do, some of the chanting, some of what's been said has been vile and obnoxious and quite openly racist.
And that's exactly what our police force have been contending with. They've been arresting the very tiny numbers of people who have been chanting things that are unacceptable. And, we pay for a police force to police our freedom of expression. The vast majority of people there have been well within the law and have no intention of breaking the law. The few that have been dealt with and have been arrested, and everyone agrees with the fact that anyone who breaks the law should be arrested.
Is it acceptable to put from the river to the sea up on the Elizabeth Tower beneath Big Ben?
I find that entirely unproblematic. Unproblematic.
So a phrase that represents the abolition of a state and its people,
the phrase,
you find unproblematic?
So the phrase has been used by Benjamin Netanyahu himself in order to suggest that Israel should push out the entirety of the Palestinian people. The exact same phrase.
That is not what it means to those crowds, and you know that, and I know that.
Well, I don't know if you've taken a poll, but, it certainly means something to Palestinians in Palestine. It means something to some people in the UK, but in the context of a pro-Palestinian rally where Westminster has put up a flag of the Israeli state in that place, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be apartheid-free, is not a phrase that's problematic.
Is religious sectarian politics here to stay?
No, I don't think it is at all. I think it's been cast that way, and I think it's been wrongly cast that way.
If one religion votes overwhelmingly for a candidate, as they did in Rochdale, and really, let's be honest, what you're trying to do in Bethnal Green and Stepney, that is by definition sectarianism.
The Jewish voice for Labour has been part of the Labour Party since the 1920s. In terms of the three main parties, we've got the Labour Friends of Israel, Labour Friends of Conservatives. But
that's why you guys are all breaking away from the Labour Party.
No, that's not why we're breaking away from the Labour
Party. It feels
like
it. What Galloway's saying, what Chris Williamson's saying.
The reason why people are breaking away from the Labour Party and traditional politics is because when we express ourselves as a populace, 71% of the population saying they want something.
You keep saying that, and that's a snapshot of the poll where we are right now.
That's a figure that won't change, because that's representative of the British people at this point.
But if you also ask them how high a priority was Gaza compared to health, open borders, etc., it wouldn't be very high.
You'll get a different range of views from different places.
Well, you will. Well, I certainly get a different range of views from you to me.
Well, sure, I'm here to represent Bethnal Green and Stepney, and that's what my constituents are concerned about, and it's higher up the priority than maybe in other places.
I'll have a bet with you that you finish up standing with George Galloway's Workers' Party.
I don't do bets on politics.
No, well, I do. Folks, there we are. You can see some of the arguments that are being made in this case with a lot more subtlety and dignity than we get from people like Chris Williamson, I am very pleased to say.